welcome to ScreenPlay, where we review elements of pop culture, from music and television to video games and film. I'm your host, Noah Bailey. Today we'll be reviewing Go, the new single from Grimes featuring Blood Diamonds, and then we'll be reviewing Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS. Sam, you reviewed the single of Grimes. Now, is this single different from any of Grimes' previous work?
I definitely think it is, because a lot of her previous work, well, first of all, it's just her, and then if there's a featured artist in this one, and a lot of her previous work is a lot more like ethereal sounding, and it's just her singing, and it's more like synth pop is what she's described as, where in this song, because of Blood Diamonds, it's like in the chorus, it has a lot more of an EDM sound, so it gives her a bit of an edge in this song, so it's really cool.
Very cool. So she's considered an independent artist, correct?
I think so, yes, correct.
All right, very cool. So how does she really differ from most people? Like, what makes her special as opposed to maybe, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, those people in the mainstream media that we hear all about, whereas if you came up to somebody on the streets and asked, hey, do you know who Grimes is? Chances are they won't know.
Yeah, they won't. First of all, like you said, like Katy Perry and Lady Gaga are mainstream. She is not. Second, she's from Canada too, so she's not from here, which, again, a lot of people from different places seem to have a more different sound, and they become popular here later on.
Yeah, we talked about that last week,
we did.
actually.
So she's different mainly, which is kind of a generic answer, is her sound. Like, if you hear any of her stuff, you can tell right away. Her voice is a little different. She actually has, like, a slight lisp, too, in some of her songs, which you think would be, like, not good or distracting, but it actually kind of makes her more unique, and it gives her, like, an edge that other people do not have. So she is really different, which I think is what makes her and why she's slowly become more popular here.
Definitely. How long has she been around?
I think only a few years, not very long. She had an album before this, which was a full-length album, and then she became more popular with that because last year, like, Pitchfork, which is like a music festival, they gave her like a Song of the Year title, which is a really big deal, so she became more known after that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Does she have any music videos we can check out?
She does. She has music videos for a few of her songs on her last album, and the one I talked about today has a music video too, and they're all really different. They tell an interesting story, and they match her sound really well, so you should check them out.
So they're not just like plain old
No, it's not just like her standing
videos.
there singing. Like, there's different stuff going on. They kind of have like an artsy feel to it. Like, you can tell she's really different just in watching the videos.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome. All right, you guys. Well, you heard it. Maybe you should go check out Grimes, her new single, Go. It sounds very cool. All right. So, Joseph, you reviewed Super Smash Bros. Tell me, what did you think?
Smash Bros, it's referred to online as Smash 4, because it's the fourth in the series. Smash 4 is, quite frankly, fantastic. It's a perfect addition to the series as a whole, and on the 3DS, it functions perfectly. The gameplay is really strong. It's got a lot of new stuff going for it, new characters, new maps and stuff. That's just a lot of fun to play with. In general, I loved it.
Very cool. So this is for the 3DS as opposed to a actual console like Xbox 360 or PS, 3 or 4.
I personally take offense to calling the 3DS not an actual console.
Okay, well,
but that's actually one of the few flaws the game has, is because it's on the 3DS. The screen's so small, the characters are tiny and can actually strain your eyes if you play too much of it.
Okay.
That said, it's also one of the strengths because you can just play with people wherever you are, you can take the game with you, and the way they designed the classic mode and the gameplay modes in general, it's very conducive to playing while on the go.
Okay. Very cool. That's great in a game. You can play it anywhere. You just don't have to be, at your house, in your room, or in your basement, or whatever. So tell me, how does the maps differ from previous games?
It's actually a really interesting point. Unlike the other games, in general, in all of the Smash Bros. Games, the various maps had variety to them in general. But uniquely in this game, there are bosses that can appear on the stages and interrupt the fight and have a unique effect on it. And there's also an alternative mode to every single map in the game to completely flatten them and remove all items from the match for purposes of tournament play.
Oh, wow.
So that's completely new.
Yeah, definitely. I've played some of the previous games before. I haven't played the 3DS one, but that definitely sounds very new. What about characters? Because I know a big thing that the Super Smash Bros. Saga has is unlocking specific characters, and you have the. I remember, being a little kid, and it was always like, oh, if you play for this long, you can unlock, this character.
That's
or whatever.
still in the game.
Yeah.
There's a number of characters to unlock in this game. They give you most of the characters right off the bat in this one, but there's something like 10 characters that you can still unlock. Some of them are clones, but even the clones are still fun to play. Two of my favorite characters are clones in the game. But in general, there's plenty of them, and they're all unlocked in multiple ways, surprisingly enough. If you play classic mode so many times with different characters in certain ways and certain difficulty settings, you'll unlock characters. Otherwise, it's based off of how many games you play and stuff like that.
Okay. Very cool. Can you name a few of the characters? I mean, I know you named the clones, but a few other characters.
For the purposes of spoilers, I shall not be talking about the unlockable characters.
All right.
With the exception of some of the more expected ones. For instance, I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the inclusion of Lucina in the game, who's a Marth clone. I'm pretty sure everyone's also aware of the fact that Ganondorf is in the game, who appeared in two of the prior games.
Okay, I didn't know Ganondorf appeared in them. Very cool. I mean, you have Link and Sheik, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much, Joseph, for talking about that. I think that about sums up our reviews for today. Thank you very much, Sam and Joseph, again for your time. If you want to read the full reviews of Go by Grimes featuring Blood Diamonds and Super Smash Bros., you can find them at auspartannews.com. So now it's time for our last thoughts, where we discuss current events going on in pop culture. Today I thought it would be kind of appropriate to talk about some of the independent media going on currently, since Sam was talking about Grimes at the beginning of the show. So, Sam, we kind of touched on that earlier about Grimes being, an independent musician, and we were talking earlier before the show about the kind of the indie world and how it's becoming very, very famous. You guys have any thoughts on that? Just right off the bat?
The title or genre of indie, as applied to music, film, and even video games, has been changing drastically over the last 10 or so years.
Oh, absolutely.
It used to only mean, developers or writers or whatever that were independent and on their own to create their materials, but we've gotten to the point where creators of mainstream media have seen what independent creators have done and the unique things they've done, and they've paid attention. They're starting to employ that style to their current stuff, and still calling it indie, which is a bit misleading.
Yeah, they're definitely, and I've noticed that a lot of big budget production studios are kind of mimicking and trying to replicate what the indie studios are doing, and you have an indie studio and they don't have as much money to play with, but when you have, the indie way of doing things, which people kind of arguably say is better or different or fresh or original, then you have all this money to play with these new fresh ideas. You usually create something very big. Sam and I were talking about Silver Linings Playbook, that movie that came out in 2012 with Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper. It won a bunch of awards. Now, that was considered an indie movie, which is kind of odd because it was a multi-million-dollar budget. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of dollars.
Budget?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Because it had the feel that it was indie. It really didn't. Because it was very simple and the plot was different.
You're right.
Because most big budget movies, I feel like they get carried away with the budget and they kind of forget about the plot line and what makes the movie different because they're worried about all the special effects and this over here and that. So I think that's why I personally like indie movies better.
No,
they're more different.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But when you think about it, if you look at a traditional indie movie, there is more often than not, 9 out of 10 times, you don't recognize any of the actors in it. Whereas, I mean, you have to have money to hire Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro and Jackie Weaver, all those people in that movie. But I did like it because it almost combined best of both worlds, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You had the original storyline, although it was an adaptation from a novel.
Yeah, from a book.
But at the same time, so you had the original storyline, but then you had all these great actors and actresses. I thought that was really cool.
There's also an element of that where it can be considered a negative as well.
Oh, definitely.
For instance, I'm not sure if it was actually the first, but many people consider the origin of the captured footage film to be the indie title.
Yes.
What was it? Blair Witch?
Yes, Blair Witch
Project.
Project.
The Blair Witch
Yeah.
Project, and that was a huge deal at the time. And now ever since we've got 20 paranormal
Oh,
films.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be overdone, and
Like
you can start
the
to
12 Paranormal Activity movies.
exactly. You start to beat things with a dead
No.
horse after a while.
Beat things with a dead
horse. Maybe not with a dead. You beat the dead horse.
Yeah.
You don't beat things with a dead horse.
Oh no, I think
Sorry
I prefer
about
the.
that.
I,
I got what you
pref-
were
I think I
saying.
preferred the first one.
Beating with the oopsies. But yeah, so Joseph, I don't have that much familiarity with indie games. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Because of they're referred to as AAA titles. Because of the surge of AAA titles that are sort of all the same, the gamer public has kind of come to accept that AAA titles in general don't actually mean much because they can have high budgets but also be so much the same. Every game is trying to be Call of Duty. If it's not Call of Duty, it's not Call of Duty enough. So you have this surgence of an entire market of indie games. If you look on Steam, 90% of the games are indie titles, and so all these groups are thinking, hey, I can be the next Minecraft, because Minecraft started as an indie group and became this major game that made millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And recently they sold out to Microsoft. Microsoft owns Minecraft now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and they sold it for I can't
A lot
remember
of
exactly.
money.
It was in the billions that they sold it for, and
It was something like that.
yeah, and it just started off as some guy in his basement creating a video game, right?
Something along those lines. It was a small group. It was a small team of
Yeah.
creators, and so you have all these people going, "Hey, I want that," and so you got hundreds and hundreds of groups making indie titles and just releasing them online, and this is both a good thing and a bad thing. On one side, this creates an entirely new genre of games where they're low budget, they're low graphical quality, but because low graphical quality, they have a new element of artistic merit. They can still be beautiful games. They can still be fantastic. Their gameplay can be fantastic. They've got a lot of cool stuff going for them. But on the other side, you have a lot of people going, "Hey, indie title, thus I don't have to put that much effort in." And there are actually a lot of indie titles out there that are actually really bad. And because there's so many of them out there, if you don't do your research, it's really hard to tell the difference between them, which is kind of the biggest issue that Steam, as I mentioned, is having a problem with. And on top of that, you also have major companies that are delving into that as well, pretending to be indie titles and going for that same minimalistic style.
Okay, very similar to other media like film and stuff.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. That's about all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you so much to Sam and Joseph for being on the show today. For those of you watching, if you have something you'd like to review, or if you have a topic for us that you want us to talk about, make sure that you mention AU Spartan Media on Twitter or use the hashtag AU ScreenPlay. Once again, I'm your host, Noah Bailey, and we will be back again next week for more pop culture reviews. See you later. That was a good show. What was that?